Building a lasting culture. There are entire books, probably dozens if not hundreds of books, that talk about how you can build amazing cultures within businesses. And some of the books that Aaron and I really like are, for example, books like Good to Great or Built to Last from Jim Collins. And you can read those as well. They're very, very good. They talk about the value of cultural values. They talk about the value of aligning everyone to a mission or to a vision, and making sure everyone's on the same page, and basically laser focused on the difference that the company wants to make in the world or within a specific sector. Even on a small scale, as a coffee shop, maybe every employee is just passionate about coffee and the taste of coffee and how it makes you feel and how it gives you energy, and the good vibes of having a good morning discussion at a nice cup of coffee, and so on and so forth. So you don't want someone that doesn't drink coffee at all to be an employee or a staff member within a coffee shop, right? You want people that are very passionate about that. Building a lasting culture has many, many facets, and there are so many things we can talk about. However, number one, the most fundamental thing you should do as a leader, right? Again, whether you're a manager, director, or owner of a company, as a leader of your team, you should do a very strong reflection of yourself. Who are you? What are your values? What do you believe in? What do you tolerate and don't tolerate, right? What does professional courtesy mean to you? What does, insubordinateness mean to you? What do good results mean to you? What do poor results mean to you? Have a reflection of yourself. Understand who you are as a person. Journal about it. Write down everything you would want from, as an experience, let's say, think about it as a theme park. I was fortunate enough when I was in the US, and in and around the US, I had the experience of going to Six Flags. So when I was in Six Flags, every ride is like a world within, I believe, the DC universe or something like that. So we had, rides that have to do with Batman and rides that have to do with Superman and so on and so forth. It was very, very cool. I really enjoyed it. There was one called the Joker. And so you're in the culture, like you felt the vibe of that place. And I expect it's the same in Disneyland. I've never been, but people tell me good things every time they go. You feel that culture there, and it's a reflection of the people that are the leaders within that company. So just like that, you are one of the leaders within your company. You should reflect on yourself to say, what do I care about? What are some of the things that matter to me? And this can't be delegated. You can't delegate this to someone else, right? You should ask yourself, what do I want? Again, for me, not swearing is very important in our companies. Maintaining a level of courtesy and professionalism in all conversations is very important in my companies, right? We do not tolerate aggression. We do not tolerate sarcasm, like bad sarcasm, not jokes, right? Not sarcastic jokes. We don't tolerate passive-aggressive sarcasm, right? Or passive aggressiveness in general. So that's just who I am. If I would be maybe a restaurant guy, a chef at the restaurant, like there's a great movie. I think it's called Burned or something like that. With this actor that's just very bad as a person when it comes to them being in the restaurant. They yell at everyone. They have unrealistic expectations. They throw things around and so on and so forth. That's the culture of that restaurant. So if he wants to build a thriving culture, he needs to find people that can thrive in that culture. They love pushing themselves to create the perfect dish and to season the soup perfectly or whatever it is. They do not tolerate anything less than excellence for themselves, and they love having a leader that pushes them to not slack and always do great. And so basically all of them are part of a 3 Michelin or whatever they have as ratings star restaurant, right? They're not a 1-star restaurant, they're a 3-star restaurant. Like they take pride in working there, right? And so that's the culture. In our case, we take pride in being very relaxed, in being very flexible with one another, in being very funny on calls. Like we take pride in having having this culture of acceptance of, hey, you're having a bad day, that's fine, take the day off, or talk less to clients today because it's not really your day, and so on and so forth. So that's who we are. So that's the culture. That's a reflection of myself to a very large degree, and for all of the amazing people that I have had around me during these 14 years since we're doing business, and we're in a place where we just know. Like, I don't need to tell someone what my expectation is in a certain context. I remember the other day, I saw in my inbox an issue, and I took a screenshot of it and sent it to my admin team. And it's like, this is an issue that has repeated itself, I don't know how many times this year, and this is the last iteration of this. Otherwise, someone is going to get penalized if this happens again, right? Because at one point you need to put your foot down. And so what I recommended was a change in systems, because obviously people don't do it intentionally. Most people do not make mistakes intentionally. So if they make the same mistake over and over again, you should change the structure of the system that they're operating in. So I recommended an operational structure. When I hopped on a Mio call with the chief of staff of that team, they literally told me, I can't believe you sent that screenshot, because that same morning, 2 hours before that, I already had a chat with the team, and we all agreed that how did we mix this up again, and we already agreed onto the solution that you also proposed. So I was amazingly, pleasantly surprised. I was expecting it, but I didn't think about, in that one case, I wasn't expecting it to the sense that in this one instance I was expecting it. I expect people to already be a part of the culture and to understand how we operate and what we do, and how we always improve and don't make the same mistakes multiple times. And so I was pleasantly surprised, because I didn't even think that in that case that they should have done this and had this conversation before my screenshot, but they have, right? Which is amazing. Which takes me to my next point. When you build culture, you need to remove excess dependencies on whomever is at the top. So my team self-assessed that this was an issue that they provoked. That team created the problem. They assessed that, hey, we created this problem, and they by themselves came up with a solution. This is one very important factor of good culture, and we recommend all of you implement that, right? This is one of the action steps. Figure out how you can make everyone on the team self-sustainable. The way you do that is by looking at write a list of every single way in which you were involved in the business in the last week or month or whatever, or in the last day, if you can't remember last week, and see, okay, how could have my team done this by themselves? What should I have had in place in terms of expectations in the Digerac, in terms of goals in the Mio, in terms of anything that we're doing, so that they could have dealt with this issue by themselves and I would have not need to be involved. And make all of your directors and all of your managers follow the same thing. There's another great book that's called The 1 Minute Manager. I think the author is Ken Blanchard, and it's a very short book. It basically teaches the same thing. It teaches how to help people be self-sustainable. And we talk about the same thing in the book and in this video. You literally make it so that whenever there's an issue, you need to teach people you should be able to figure everything out yourself. If you need me, that means I am failing you as a team leader, right? And I don't want to fail you. I want you to have all of the knowledge, all of the tools, all of the guidance, everything there, so that you can take all of the decisions by yourself, and not only take the decisions by yourself, but do amazing, like take the best decisions and do the amazing work, and I don't even need to be there. That doesn't mean that I'm not there. That doesn't mean that I don't spot check. That doesn't mean that I'm not working on whatever I like to work on in this business. That just means that you do not depend on me to do good work in your role. And that's a very important part of culture we recommend all of you implement. Moving on from there, another thing that is important in terms of culture to talk about is that you should involve everyone on your team when you're building culture, especially if you already have a team, right? If you're at the beginning and you have a small team, you can involve 3 people, but if you have 50 people, you can involve everyone. And you can literally ask them, what do you like about working here? And what do you dislike about working here? Who's one person you really like in the company? Who's one person you wish wouldn't be in the company? And so you would be surprised at the type of answers you get. For example, Aaron has an amazing story about when they bought Laughlin, him and his co-owner, when they bought Laughlin, their current company, or one of their current companies, they had an issue with someone, if I remember the story correctly, that was a, I want to use the correct words, yes, sexually harassing other people in the company. They would do it semi-mildly, so most people wouldn't say much. However, they were doing it constantly and for a long time. And so in one of the PDPs, Aaron wasn't calling them PDPs at the time, in one of the meetings that he was having with someone spoke up and said, hey, this is something that is really bothering me and no one's doing anything about it. And I was like, what? Excuse me, what's going on? And it's like, yeah, this is going on. Can you tell me of other people that are doing this? And so they did. And so they had this conversation with multiple people, right? And very, professionally, again, they say, is there someone in the company, that's either making you uncomfortable or you would wish they weren't here and so on. So they're figuring that out, talking to all of them. And interesting enough, all of them felt the same way about that one individual. And so they literally had to remove them from the company. And it's not like they had to, they wanted to. Because if you want to build a strong culture, again, you need to involve everyone in that culture, and you need to understand what people's needs are, what they care about, what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel valued, and so on and so forth. And you add those things within your culture if those things are also a reflection of yourself, as in if you fully agree with those things. If you're a guy yourself or you're a woman yourself that's very lustful, and you yourself are sexually harassing other people and everyone in the company is sexually harassing one another, maybe that's the culture for you, right? That's the perfect culture for you, right? In our case, it's not. In our case, for example, we make a ton of sexual jokes or things like that or whatever, but they're so funny. Like when we made, for example, last year we went to a Christmas dinner, and there were like maybe 10 or 12 of us. And basically there's this joke that we learned a few years ago. I can't remember where. Someone read it online and we used it a few times, about someone being very athletic. And we sometimes make that joke because the way we read it online is, I can't remember, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, someone that can play with a lot of balls at the same time can be a very athletic individual, right? And so we use that as an internal joke, and we have a ton of stupid internal jokes like that. Like, for example, we had nights when we would go, we had game nights. We would have like maybe 10 people here, and we would play a very strange game called Cards Against Humanity. And the weirdest types of conversations come out when you're playing that game. And likewise, many of the jokes that we would use in or on the spot whilst playing the game, we then keep and we just play around with that, right? And so for us, that's perfectly acceptable. For some place that's maybe a very religious place or a very Christian place, and they don't make sexual jokes at all, they don't make alcohol jokes at all. Or for example, when we had the game nights, we also had alcohol. I personally don't drink alcohol at all. However, I don't have an issue with other people drinking alcohol, right? And so that's just how I am. So I don't mind, and we have snacks, we have alcohol, we have, a lot of things that I don't necessarily consume, but I don't mind if other people consume them. Again, I don't have a problem with that. If you're running a Christian organization that, doesn't drink alcohol, doesn't make jokes or comments like that or whatever, then this won't resonate with you. So if you have 4 people, like let's say you have a team of 10 people, and 4 of those would love to drink alcohol or to have beers at the end of the day or whatever, but that really doesn't resonate with you, you just say, no, I'm sorry, not here, not in this company. This is not the culture I want to build. So for us, I really don't care. I really don't care how much people drink, as long as they don't become aggressive, they remain competent, they do whatever it is that they need to do. I don't agree with drinking, but again, I'm not against it like, some people are fanatically against it. This was the point on involving everyone within the building of your culture, and it still needs to be a reflection of you. Moving on from there, what you can do is you can decide what does being a rock star mean within your company, right? So let me explain what that is. If you go to, let's say most people use planes for transportation at one point or another in their life, like they travel via plane. So in most cases, your experience on the plane is you wait in line to get boarded, then you wait in line to take your seat, then you take your seat, then they tell you whatever it is that they need to do, that they need to tell you, and then after that you fly, and then you wait in line to get out of the plane, and then you wait in line for customs and so on and so forth. So it's not necessarily the most pleasant of experiences. It's just something you have to do when you want to travel with a plane. And so if you do this, you will find that the vast majority of experiences are the exact same, right? Which means that sooner or later they become invisible. You just know that this is what's going to happen. Like the first time you take a plane, you're listening to the instructions of what happens if the plane is going to crash, right? You're like, oh my God, I need to do this, and I need to be ready with this, and those are the exits and so on. If you listen to that 10 times, the 11th time you'll be like, yeah, I know this, I'm just going to put my headphones on, right? So it goes into invisibility. So now we would like to talk a little bit about building a culture that allows people to be rock stars within your company. So let me explain. Within certain airlines, there's a rule there's a guideline that people can make jokes whilst saying the guidelines of what you need to do in case of an emergency and so on. So I'm going to paraphrase an example of something I remember that a flight attendant has done on one of her trips. They're like, in case the oxygen masks fall out of the top, you put the first oxygen mask on yourself, and if you have children, you pick the child that you like most and you put the oxygen mask on them first, and then you put the oxygen mask on the second one. Everyone started laughing. It was so funny. Like, you pick the one you like most and you save them first, and then you go to the next one. And they made like 3 or 4 other jokes like that, and everyone was paying attention. That experience was so much better. It immediately became a rockstar experience, and that person became a rockstar in themselves for making that joke. Obviously, some people on the plane might have not liked the joke, right? Because whatever, they can get offended. It's very easy to get offended. It's a habit now. It's a trend of people getting offended for anything, right? And so maybe some people on the plane were offended. However, this was the culture of that company. If 50% of the plane loved it and 50% of the plane hated it, what I want as clients is the 50% that loved it. And that 50% will talk about all of their friends, and will talk about that with all of their friends, and they're like, oh my God, this was so funny. You need to fly that airline, so much better as an experience, etc. And everyone that's not their ideal client will be like, imagine what joke they said. They said this and then they said that. It was horrible. I would never fly with them again. And that is the natural selection of having both employees that really love your culture and clients that really love your culture, having like this amazing bonding experience that you can have. Is the almost the same thing in sports, right? When people really love a team or really love a player, right? They just bond with them. They feel they resonate with that team or with whatever it is that they stand for. And it's the same with businesses. So this is how you can become a rock star. Allow people to basically be amazing in whatever it is that they can do within their roles, and figure out what that is, right? In every role. How can a developer be a rock star? How can a customer success person be a rock star? How can a salesperson be a rock star? And ask them as well. Remember, you build culture together with people. So you ask them, what do you believe we could do so that people have amazing experiences? Let's brainstorm. And boom, 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 you come up with 20 things. and you choose the top 2 and implement them, try them this quarter, see what feedback you get from people, right? So that's what I want you to do right now. That's the action step. Figure out for every single role, right, what could they do to become a rock star, and you can figure this out together with them. And I highly recommend doing this together with them because they have so much experience and so much real world and timely events that have happened to them recently that you weren't there. You might know to do their job as well as they do it. However, you haven't done their job in maybe 6 months or 6 years. They are doing their job right now. So their experience right now is more relevant than your experience from 6 months or 6 years ago, right? So that's why it's very useful to involve people in these conversations. Moving on from there, the one thing I want to make very clear for everyone listening is that once you start involving people in everything in the business, right? You start showing them the vision of the business. You show them the goals for the quarter. You set the scoreboard. You allow them to become rock stars and so on and so forth. You will see that your team wants to be involved. This is where you start feeling the benefits of being unshackled, right? This is at level 3 and 4. You're starting to feel the benefits of all of the systems you've put in place until now, because your team, once you have all of these systems in place, will know what the culture is, and they will understand that they can make recommendations of amazing experiences for their clients. They know that once a month they'll have a PDP and they're writing down the suggestions they have. They know that they need to set meals for themselves, and they just do. They want to be involved, right? The vast majority of people do not want to live a life in which they have zero excitement. They want an adventure, right? Most people want an adventure. That's why video games are so popular, because they give people a sense of adventure, a sense of excitement, a sense of progress. But imagine if we can do the same thing within companies. Imagine if you can feel a sense of progress within your team, helping your team. Imagine if you can feel a sense of progress within your own career, right, with PDPs and growing yourself every single quarter, every single year. Imagine if you can feel a sense of adventure, that you can try new things in the business. When all of these things are in place, your team will want to not only be involved, but also shine within their respective roles, right? And when I say shine, I don't mean from an egocentric standpoint. Maybe some people are support staff, but they will shine in the sense that there's a cool series, for example, it's called Suits. It's with lawyers. And there's a guy there, I think he's called Harvey Specter, if I'm not mistaken. And he has an assistant, and she is Donna. And so this is another inside joke that we have, that, in our world, I'm the Harvey Specter, and Michelle, my main chief of staff, she's my Donna, because she literally thinks of things in advance. So this is how she shines. So Donna, Harvey would come to her and would say, please cancel my 4 p.m. meeting. And she's like, I've already canceled it. I'm like, could you please put this person in instead? They're already there. And they're like, okay, could you please prepare the meeting notes for the meeting? It's like, here they are, right? And it's so cool to see, like, they're literally shining in their role. Like they've done everything in advance of Harvey actually asking for it. It's so cool. I recommend you watch at least the first few episodes. It's nice. I don't watch any series until the end, because I get bored very quickly and they tend to repeat themselves a lot. But that's something I've seen in like one of the first episodes, and I really like that. And I immediately thought of Michelle, and I finally understood, because my team watches a lot of series in their spare time. And they said, like Robert is like Harvey and Michelle is like Donna. They said so many times, and I never understood the reference. And then finally I saw the series and I understood it. And so Michelle shines every single day and every week, because she's almost always in advance. Today I'm here at the office filming this, and she knew I was going to come here. So what she's done, she knew I had some paperwork to sign, so she literally prepared the paperwork on her desk and sent me a message. I don't know where you're going to shoot this week, but please note that I left you paperwork to sign so that you don't need to come twice to the office this week. I'm like, oh my God, I love you. Yes, please, thank you. To keep doing whatever it is you're doing. So they want to be involved. And many people, once you put them in this culture and you allow them to thrive, you will see that the most amazing things happen. And so the action step here is to figure out ways in which you can involve people in the day-to-day, let's say, strategic management or cultural management of the company. Even if you figure out one thing per month, like for example, this month we can do a survey. Next month we can do a brainstorming sessions on ways in which people could enjoy their work more. Next month we can do, for example, we can find new traditions that we can implement. You know, like for example, like game nights. We did a 360 survey and we figured out we can do game nights. Okay, so in one of the quarters or in one of the months of the quarter, we literally, that was the main thing that we wanted to do, to involve everyone in voting for the games that they would like to play on game night. Everyone was involved, right? Even people that didn't usually play games, they said, well, you know what, when I was younger, I used to play whatever, I don't know, Counter-Strike. They said, I used to play a lot of Counter-Strike, right? Like, okay, so you like first-person shooters. Do you mind, because no one plays Counter-Strike anymore, do you mind if we play whatever, Overwatch or whatever people were suggesting? I said, no, as long as it's, you know, very easy to learn and, you know, I can just go in and have fun, it's fine, I can join the game. Perfect, right? So we were involving everyone.